Everybody give it up for Abby Johnson and Shawn Carney. So this is a dream interview for me right here, and I'm so pumped about this particular interview. And you've gotten to hear from Abby. She's done incredible things, and you know her story. But I also want to intertwine how your stories are connected. And you might have seen the video that introduced her, but maybe you guys could talk about your friendship and your relationship and go from there.
Yeah, well, one of the reasons I met Abby was because when I was in high school, I got involved in the pro-life movement, and I came to things like you're doing. And it hit me in high school, something that Abby said earlier, which is, this is it. This is the issue of my generation, of your generation, of every generation that comes after us until it ends, because without life, we don't need better health care, we don't need immigration laws, we don't need anything. All other issues assume life, except for abortion. And so I was convicted on that early on. I was asked by my then girlfriend, now wife, to go pray outside of the Planned Parenthood, where Abby started volunteering. Then she started working there, and I started working for the local pro-life organization. We became leaders of opposing organizations at the same time. We did a couple of media interviews against one another's points a few times, which is funny now. And, you know, when we moved in next door to offer free pregnancy tests, just before we launched 40 Days for Life, you know, Abby had her conversion, and she walked right next door, and she was my abortion worker. I knew her for 8 years. For those of you that have seen Unplanned, I knew her for 8 years before she had her conversion. And I thank God for that, because I would have been tempted not to believe her unless I knew her and had all those conversations for all those years.
Wow. And Abby, we've gotten to hear from you, but talk a little bit about that process with you and your friendship and how that is connected now.
Yeah, you know, I think that, you know, as I said, I got involved as a college kid, and I knew Shawn, I knew his wife, and had, you know, developed a relationship with a lot of the people who were out in front of my facility every day. You know, people a lot of times go out to the facilities and they think, you know, is this making a difference? Does this matter? And, you know, I can say that the people that I had a relationship with out in front of my facility, many of them I still have relationships with today. I mean, like Shawn and his family, but then, you know, there's another gal, Karen, who was portrayed in the film. She actually works for my ministry, and then there were none now. And another gal, Heather, she's the godmother to one of my sons. You know, so these relationships do matter. And actually, one of the things I tell people all the time when they ask me, they say, you know, does it really make a difference? Well, one of the last Planned Parenthood conference that I attended, I went into a breakout session called Anti-Choice Harassment, which is us, out on the sidewalk now. And
very negative name for a breakout.
Right, yeah. And they were talking about the no-show rate. So women who have appointments for abortions but just don't show up. And the typical no-show rate for an abortion clinic is around 15 or 20%. But when there are, they had studied, you know, what does it look like when there are people outside praying? And what they found is that when there are people outside praying in front of these abortion facilities, the no-show rate goes up as high as 75%. And, you know, people say, well, why? I mean, why would that matter? Well, because when you're out there, you are showing people that what they are doing by walking in they are doing something that is morally objectionable, right? Like, you've never gone to the dentist where there's somebody standing out there like, don't go get your cavity filled, right? Because like, going to the dentist is perfectly fine. In fact, if you haven't been in the past year, like, please go. So going to the dentist is perfectly fine. But going to the abortion clinic, you're showing them that something is not okay there. Something is wrong. And you're reminding them of that just by going and showing up. Yeah.
And I first got to know of Abby because of Shawn and 40 Days for Life. There's a local group here, Life First. Teresa Strack and Joe Morrison are very involved locally, and they do so much. And they got me involved with the 40 Days for Life campaign. And then I saw the movie Unplanned, and I was like, oh, wow, who is that amazing Abby Johnson? You know, and it just was all connected. And so, but we're thankful for the work of 40 Days for Life, because I tell you, getting to go out there and pray and do worship, I had some skepticism about going out and doing that, but getting to go out there and see it for myself. I mean, these are just people, it's Protestants and Catholics coming together to pray for the end of abortion. It is a genocide. It's an Imago Dei issue. It's not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's an Imago Dei issue. It's the image of God issue. We are made in the image of God, and it's appalling that this would be going on, but it is. And so we've got to fight to end this genocide, and it's beautiful.
It is beautiful, and just the, us on stage and talking about this. I mean, Abby goes through this litany of, and this person that I knew, and this person I knew, and she's the godmother of my kid, and she works for me. I mean, let that sink in. I would have loved at 15 or 16 years old. The way I met this woman was opposing the organization that she was part of. I mean, it wasn't like this friendly start. It was an 8-year battle, and I think these days we get so complicit by saying, well, we're a divided country. You have your opinion and I have mine. Let's just move on. And that's insane. And that takes away from the dignity of the human person, that we do have a heart, and we do have a mind, and we do have a soul. And we're capable of great frailty and great evil, but we're also capable of great conversion and of great sanctity. And you should have such confidence when you're in school and when you go to college to discuss abortion and to know that there is an exodus out of the abortion industry. And here's an in-person example, but there's also an exodus of people who just, at some point, passively supported a right to abortion and no longer do. And so you need to have an attitude of, let's go get them, because scenes like this are possible and they're becoming more common.
And it's not happening the other way.
Right.
Okay. Like, there are no people that used to run pregnancy centers who are now working at Planned Parenthood. Okay. Because you don't choose death after life. Like, you're not like, oh yeah, you know what? Like, I know the truth of life and how beautiful that is. I'm going to go kill it. Like, you don't do that. Conversion is only taking place one way, and that's from death to life. It's not going from life to death. And that tells you right there, like, I run a ministry to get abortion clinic workers out of the abortion industry and into a life with Christ. There's no organization helping pregnancy center directors, getting them out of the pregnancy centers and helping them become pro-choice. Yep. Okay, like, that doesn't exist. That doesn't happen. And that tells you right there, that tells you everything you need to know, that we are on the side of truth, that life is truth, that life will always intersect with truth.
That's good, Abby.
It's also the only issue in America where one side prays to God that we're wrong, and that abortion is not a Holocaust, and it doesn't kill a baby, and it is like scraping your knee and the skin cells coming off, and yet science and reason point to the exact opposite. And so it's not that we're out lobbying. We don't want the reality to be that there's 2,500 abortions a day in the United States. It's that reality that calls us to action, because we've all had our nephew or our kid, or some of y'all yourselves, you were on the fridge. As in the ultrasound picture, your first ID, and that is a reality that we can't get away from. That's why, despite 50 years of legalized abortion, it comes up at every judicial nomination. It's still the most controversial issue. It comes up at every presidential debate, and it's still something that, most pastors, many pastors, unfortunately, are very timid about, because it is what it is. And so, now we're supposed to follow the science on some things, but not everything. But the pro-life movement is pro-science. It's also pro-common sense. And so we don't let pregnant women get on a roller coaster. Nobody would serve them 10 whiskeys. But they can go in the United States of America, where we allow abortion up to 40 weeks and have an abortion, and then we can deny health care to the baby girl if she commits the sin of surviving an abortion. The one thing, only surgery you're not supposed to survive is an abortion. And that makes it our issue. That's the issue of young people. Because if we don't have life, we don't have anything else. And we are capable of so much more if we are willing to go in and to snuff out the most innocent among us.
Very good point. I want to get into the nitty-gritty of how to win the conversation on life. Give us some talking points. Equip these young people, if they're talking to their peers, if they're talking to their classmates, if they're talking to their friends or family, on how to win the conversation on life in a cordial and civil way. We've talked about being a happy warrior at this conference, winning the argument with a smile on your face, and lovingness and kindness.
Yeah, and making the difference between respecting and loving someone and disrespecting their ridiculous claim. You can do both. We can love the sinner and hate the sin, but we can also respect somebody without respecting their point, because the pro-abortion point is insane. And there is a great way to do that. I just wrote a book called What to Say When. It comes out this week, and it's on pro-life apologetics. So whether it's your uncle at Thanksgiving or
available on Amazon.
That's right. They're available on Amazon. Are we allowed? Can I promote a book here? Is this wrong? Okay.
Plug your book. Plug your movie.
That
plug
was
your
unplanned.
organization.
That was unplanned. It was
Also available on
also
Amazon.
available. The best pro-life book in the world, I might add, is Unplanned. Even though I've written 4, I'm plugging yours. So, but if you want to get What to Say When, it breaks it down. And we have the bizarre things now, because there's forced birth. That's a thing. In case you haven't heard of it, you will. There's surrogacy. There are so many different things. The transgendered movement is getting into the pro-life issue for sure, because you're certainly easier to kill if we remove your gender. It dehumanizes you. And so there's a lot of things. Also, the traditional arguments of rape and overpopulation and life of the mother and all these things that come up. But there's a lot of new and bizarre arguments. And the reason we're here today is because one of us didn't cross that line where it's like, well, I'm never talking to him ever again, or I'm never talking to her ever again. There had to be a mutual respect, and that goes a long way, because they're wrong. They're wrong, and so we don't want to get in the way of truth by not being equipped to lovingly communicate on the behalf of a person who is unable to do so.
Yeah, and I would say, I think the number one thing for me, and what I tell people all the time, is don't be afraid of your argument. You are right on this issue. Abortion is wrong. Abortion is evil. It is inherently evil. It is inherently wrong. So, don't be afraid to commit on that point. Okay, so even if you don't know all the ins and outs of debate, even if you don't know all the ins and outs of your argument, listen, abortion is evil. Okay, and so don't be afraid to solidly commit on that point. Okay, and you can get back to them on all the whys. Okay, but don't be afraid. Don't be timid. Don't be okay, well, you made a point there, and so maybe I don't think abortion's evil. Okay, abortion's evil. No matter what they say, no matter what point they have, Abortion is evil. Why? Because it takes the life of an innocent human being. And no matter what, we know that science tells us that at the moment of conception, there is a human being in the womb. No matter what. I don't care how that baby was conceived. I don't care if it was in the air, on the ground, or standing on your head in a hot tub. I don't care. It can happen in a hot tub. You know, people have those weird things like can't happen in the water. It can. Anyway. Moving on.
Keep going.
The point is,
at the moment of conception, there is a unique and individual human being in the womb. That's what science tells us. They can say whatever they want, but science is on our side. I mean, that's it. And any disruption in that life continuum, any intentional disruption in that life continuum is what? It's murder, it's killing. Look, I mean, I tell people all the time, you can say whatever you want. You can call yourself a unicorn. That doesn't mean that it's true, and that doesn't mean that it's science. I have science on my side. I have logic on my side. I have medical technology on my side. And I have the creator of heaven and earth on my side. So say whatever you want, but I'm right. And you're wrong. Commit to your argument.
yeah, they have to justify abortion. We don't have to justify life.
That's right.
And when you ask an abortion supporter, genuinely, what is an abortion? You've just gained control of the entire thing because they have never thought about that question. They blindly support it. And we don't, because it's life and death for us, which is why we're winning at the grassroots.
Yep.
I want to give you all the parting word. So any tips on arguments, on anything else you'd want to add to winning the argument on life? And then I'd also like for you to plug your organizations and how they can get involved with your organization in particular, because we have young people that want to come pray or want to come help you, Abby, with what you're doing. So how can they join in and be a part of the pro-life movement? They want to be. They don't just want to sit on the sidelines. They want to be in the action.
Yeah, it's good that you don't want to sit on the sidelines, and you shouldn't, and really we can't. There's no fence with abortion because it is life and death. And so I would encourage you to take part in 40 Days for Life. Abby just shared the 75% no-show rate when people are out there peacefully praying. We have great campaigns here in Montgomery County. I live in Montgomery County. We obviously have a great campaign at the massive Planned Parenthood on the Gulf Freeway. But get involved. Get your parents involved. Go out and peacefully oppose. The abortion industry wants to nest. They don't want to be black or white. They want to be gray. And when we go out there and we peacefully pray and we draw attention to the reality of what goes on inside these buildings, the women turn around, the workers leave, and the community knows that this is not okay. That the abortion industry doesn't have the blessing of the community. And so you can get involved at 40daysforlife.com. We also have a 40 Days for Life weekly podcast that you can listen to. I mentioned the new book, What to Say When, which is a great resource for discussing abortion with anyone at any point. But do something. If you leave here, you've had a lot of talks. And there's a lot of times to stand up and cheer. But if you remember anything, if you commit to anything that you remember 10 years from now, it's that you need to do something to defend the unborn. They need you, and our Lord needs you, and our country needs you to stand up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as young people, one of the most important things that you can do is to join 40 Days for Life and to go and stand out in front of your local abortion facility. I think it's one of the most important things that you can do. As I said, it's your peers, it's your friends walking in to have abortions. It's not mine, it's yours. And they need to see people that look like you, not people that look like me. I look like their grandma standing out there. They need to see people that look like you standing out there saying, you know what, you can do this. I'll be here to help you. You're not alone. Because these women feel alone. That's why they're having abortions. They feel like they can't do it. And they need to see people that look like them saying, I'll help you. I'll walk with you. I'll get you to a pregnancy center. I'll get you to the help that you need. Let's do this together. Take my hand. Let's do it. And that's going to be a lot more powerful coming from someone that looks like you than it does coming from someone like me. And so I would say that's one of the most important things that you can do is joining your local 40 Days for Life group, going out there, and it feels weird, it feels awkward, do it anyway.
It's
God
awesome.
calls us to do awkward, weird things sometimes.
And it's awkward because they're there, not because you're there.
Yeah.
And the awkwardness goes away after a few minutes.
And I would say, I've got organizations, you can, whatever, but.
What's the name of the org?
And then there were none, and Pro-Love Ministries and whatever, but I would rather you actually listen to my podcast, Politely Rude.
On Apple Podcast?
On Apple Podcasts.
Politely Rude.
Politely Rude, Google Podcast, whatever that's called. Spotify, whatever. Politely Rude, because I try to help equip people with conservative arguments, and I have cool guests on. And
Give it
Politely
5
Rude.
stars and write a review once you listen to it.
And see the movie.
And see the
If
movie,
you have not
Unplanned.
seen the
Can
movie,
you go to
see the movie.
unplanned.com? Is that how you find it? Or
Yeah, or Amazon. anywhere.
Amazon, yeah.
Amazon.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
See the movie.
Or you can go to my website, abbyj.com.
It's an awesome movie. And let me last thing I'll say about 40 Days for Life. It's an incredible organization. You get to do worship. You get to pray. You make new friends. It's super positive. It's not weird. They're not angry, mean people. They're all happy
A lot of people end up getting married. Had
That's-
a lot of 40 Days for Life weddings.
That's
So,
awesome.
Your dating is not going so well? Get
Days
involved
for
in 40
Life.
Days for Life.
When's your
hurt.
when's your next campaign? When does it begin?
September 22nd.
September
Start, we kick
22nd.
off.
Everybody mark your calendar for September 22nd. And make sure you're involved here in Montgomery County if you live here or wherever you may live.
Yeah,
All right.
awesome.
Give it up for Abby Johnson and Shawn Carney, everybody. Yeah. I got one shirt to give away. Who wants a Life First